Hi, I'm Emily. I'll be your storyteller today. Many of you use these stories to fall asleep. So before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Also, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now get comfortable. Close your eyes and let the sound of the rain guide you into the story. The neon glow of the city blurred through the rain-streaked windshield of my old sedan, painting the world in a symphony of reds, blues, and electric yellows. It was a typical Tuesday night in October, cold and relentlessly wet, the kind of night where most people preferred the warmth of their homes. But for me, Sarah, a rideshare driver, it meant more fares. My car, well-worn but reliable, hummed its familiar tune as I navigated the slick streets of downtown. The rhythmic sweep of the wipers, a constant, almost hypnotic companion in the dense downpour. The scent of wet asphalt and stale coffee lingered. In the air, a familiar comfort. My phone chimed, a new ride request popping up on the screen. The destination was a residential street on the very outskirts of town, a place I rarely ventured, especially not on such a dreadful night. The passenger's name was simply listed as AN, with no profile picture, which wasn't unusual, but a small prickle of unease ran down my spine. The coordinates showed a pickup location a few blocks away, tucked away on a dimly lit side street, where the streetlights struggled to pierce the thick curtain of rain, casting long, distorted shadows. I pulled up to the curb, the rain drumming a frantic rhythm on my roof, and peered through the passenger window. There, standing beneath the feeble glow of a flickering streetlight, was a figure. It was a woman, indistinct in the heavy rain, cloaked in what appeared to be a dark, heavy coat, her head bowed. She looked utterly soaked, the water clinging to her hair and clothes, yet she made no move to shield herself from the relentless downpour, an odd detail that immediately caught my attention, making the small hairs on my arms stand on end, a subtle sense of foreboding. She opened the back passenger door with a quiet click and slid inside. There was no greeting, no typical, "thank you for waiting." The air in my car immediately grew colder, and with it came a faint, earthy scent, like wet soil mixed with something almost metallic, a subtle aroma that was both unfamiliar and unsettling. I glanced into the rearview mirror, trying to catch her eye, but her head remained bowed, her features obscured by the shadow of her hood, a silent, unmoving presence in the back. "All right then," I said, trying to inject a cheerful note into my voice, though a chill had already begun to settle in my stomach. "Just confirming is our destination." I paused, waiting for a response, any acknowledgement. But there was only silence from the back seat, profound and absolute, broken only by the incessant drumming of the rain on the roof and the soft hum of my car's engine. It was an unsettling quiet, deeper than mere shyness, a silence that felt heavy, almost unnatural, filling the small confines of my car. I tried again, turning my head slightly to glance at her in the rearview mirror. Her silhouette was still hunched, unmoving, and the hood of her coat seemed to absorb the dim light from the dashboard, leaving her features in complete shadow. There was no visible breath fogging the cold air, no subtle shift of weight, nothing to indicate she was even breathing. It was an unsettling stillness, far beyond the quietness of a sleepy passenger, and it sent a fresh wave of unease washing over me, making my hands grip the steering wheel tighter. "Are you all right back there?" I asked, my voice a little louder this time, trying to sound casual, but the words felt strained, almost swallowed by the oppressive silence. The only response was the relentless drumming of the rain, now accompanied by the soft creak of my car's suspension as I turned a corner. The earthy, metallic scent seemed to grow faintly stronger, mingling with the familiar smell of the damp interior, a subtle but persistent reminder of her peculiar presence. The ride continued in this unsettling quiet. I kept glancing at the rear-view mirror, trying to discern any detail, any movement. But she remained a dark, unmoving shape. It felt as though I was driving an empty car, yet the presence in the back seat was undeniable, a heavy, cold weight that made the air feel thin and difficult to breathe. The rain outside seemed to intensify, lashing against the windows with a renewed fury, as if mirroring the growing tension inside my vehicle. As I navigated the winding residential streets, the GPS voice, usually a comforting presence, now seemed unnaturally loud in the profound silence. Each turn, each sudden splash of water from the tires, felt amplified, echoing in the confined space of the car. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone in this silence, that my passenger, despite her stillness, was acutely aware of every single sound, every subtle shift in the car, her unseen gaze fixed upon the back of my head. Suddenly, the car hit a particularly deep puddle, sending a violent spray of water against the windshield and rattling the entire vehicle. My heart leaped into my throat. In the rearview mirror, for a fleeting second, the hood of her coat seemed to shift, just an inch, and a faint, almost transparent glimmer caught the dashboard light, like light passing through disturbed water or a mirage. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it was gone, leaving only the dark, unmoving silhouette and the chilling realization that perhaps she wasn't quite as solid as I had first believed. The faint glimmer, like light through disturbed water, had been fleeting, but it had carved itself into my mind, a terrifying puzzle piece that didn't fit. My grip tightened on the steering wheel, my knuckles white, as I tried to rationalize it away. A trick of the light, perhaps, or a bead of water catching the reflection in an odd way. But the chill in the air, the strange, earthy scent, and the unwavering silence from the back seat told a different story, one far more unsettling, making the hairs on my neck prickle with cold dread. I glanced into the rearview mirror again, almost compulsively. The dark, hunched silhouette remained, unmoving, perfectly still, but this time I thought I could discern a faint outline, a subtle distortion in the air around her, like heat haze rising from asphalt on a summer day, only cold. It was barely there, a shimmer at the edges of my vision, almost imperceptible against the gloomy backdrop of the rain-soaked night, yet enough to send a fresh wave of primal fear through me, a chilling whisper of the impossible. My route took us through a particularly desolate stretch of road, bordered by dense, unlit woods. The only light came from my headlights, cutting narrow tunnels through the sheeting rain, transforming the familiar landscape into a claustrophobic, monochrome world. The rhythmic thump-thump of the wipers seemed to echo the frantic beat of my heart, as the unsettling silence from the back seat grew heavier, more oppressive, making the air in the car feel thick and difficult to breathe. Suddenly, a cold, unmistakable gust of wind swept through the car, even though all the windows were fully closed. It carried with it that distinct, metallic, earthy scent, now much stronger, almost overpowering, filling my lungs with its ancient, acrid breath. It felt as if a door to some forgotten, damp place had momentarily opened and then slammed shut, leaving behind an unbearable chill that seeped into my very bones, a profound sense of the impossible. My gaze snapped to the rearview mirror. The silhouette was still there, but now, for a split second, I saw a subtle shift, a faint, almost transparent outline within the darkness of her hood. It was a face, indistinct and blurry, like a reflection in murky water, devoid of color or detail, yet undeniably human-shaped. Then, just as quickly, it vanished, leaving only the oppressive darkness and the chilling realization that my passenger might not be merely quiet, but something far more ethereal, a fleeting presence in the heart of the storm. The fleeting glimpse of that indistinct, blurry face sent a shockwave through me, a chilling confirmation of my growing dread. It wasn't just a quiet passenger. It was something else, something unseen, a presence that defied all logic and reason. My breath hitched in my throat, and I could feel my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a drumbeat of pure, unadulterated fear in the confines of my car. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white, my eyes darting frantically to the rearview mirror. But the face was gone, replaced by the familiar, unsettling silhouette. The cold gust of wind that had swept through the car still lingered, raising goosebumps on my arms, and that faint, metallic, earthy scent was now strong, almost suffocating, filling the air with its ancient, acrid breath, a constant reminder of the impossibility of the situation. The GPS chimed, its calm, automated voice announcing, "Arriving at your destination." A wave of relief, potent and overwhelming, washed over me, almost dizzying in its intensity. I pulled up to the curb of the destination address, a dark, unassuming house swallowed by the shadows of overgrown trees, its windows blank and unwelcoming. The rain, as if on cue, began to slacken its furious drumming, turning into a steady, soft patter. I put the car in park and turned off the engine, plunging the interior into a deeper gloom, broken only by the dim glow of the dashboard lights. The silence from the back seat was now absolute, an oppressive weight that filled the car. "We're here," I said, my voice barely a whisper, turning to face the back seat, steeling myself for whatever I might see, or perhaps not see. The back passenger door opened with a soft click, and a whoosh of cold, damp air swirled into the car, carrying with it the last vestiges of that strange, earthy scent. I watched, my heart in my throat, as the door slowly swung shut again, an empty space where my passenger had been. She was gone. Not a sound, not a shadow, not a single trace of her remained, leaving only a small, shimmering puddle of water on the floor mat where she had sat, and a profound, chilling mystery that the dying rain would only begin to uncover. The emptiness of the back seat, where only moments before a passenger had sat, sent a cold tremor through me, a chilling realization that shattered the mundane reality of my night job. The only tangible proof of her presence was the small, shimmering puddle of water on the floor mat, reflecting the dim glow of the dashboard lights. It was not enough to confirm, yet it was too much to deny. The scent of wet earth and that faint metallic tang still lingered in the air, a phantom aroma clinging to the car's upholstery, making the impossible seem terrifyingly real. My fingers, numb with a mix of fear and disbelief, fumbled for my phone. The ride had been completed on the app, the payment processed, and the passenger rated, a chilling irony given her Vanishing Act. I stared at the 5-star rating I had instinctively given, a reflex from countless rides now feeling utterly ridiculous, a hollow gesture to an unseen entity. The GPS on my screen still displayed the destination address, a dark, unassuming house that now seemed to loom with an ominous silence in the dying rain. I reversed out of the driveway, my gaze fixed on the empty back seat in the rearview mirror. The rain had softened to a gentle patter, its previous intensity a distant memory, as if the storm itself had served a specific, unsettling purpose. The world outside felt eerily quiet. The usual hum of distant traffic muted, replaced by a profound stillness that seemed to absorb all sound. It was the quiet of a place holding its breath, a witness to something inexplicable. As I drove away from the address, my mind replayed every detail of the encounter, searching for a logical explanation, a trick of the light, a momentary lapse in my attention. But the more I replayed it, the more the unsettling facts solidified. The cold air, the peculiar scent, the utter silence, and that fleeting, blurry glimpse of a face in the mirror. It was undeniable. I had just transported an entity, a being that existed beyond the realm of normal human perception, an invisible passenger. A sudden jolt from the road snapped me out of my thoughts. I almost missed it. A small, dark object, lying on the back seat, half hidden by the folds of my jacket which I had left there. It was a compact, antique silver compass, its brass casing tarnished with age, and its glass face cracked. It wasn't mine, nor had it been there before the ride. It was a tangible clue, a haunting token left behind by my vanishing passenger, a silent invitation to unravel her spectral mystery. I picked up the compass, its cold, tarnished silver surprisingly heavy in my palm. The glass face was indeed cracked, a spiderweb of fissures radiating from its center, obscuring the needle. Yet, despite the damage, I could feel a faint, almost imperceptible tremor emanating from it, a subtle vibration that seemed to resonate with the strange, earthy scent that still clung to the air. It wasn't just an old object. It felt like a key, a silent message left behind by my vanishing passenger, a breadcrumb in the inexplicable. My mind, still reeling, frantically tried to process this tangible evidence. Who was she? What was she? And why had she left this behind? The compass was old, clearly an antique, and felt out of place in the back seat of my modern car. It hummed faintly against my skin, a low, resonant thrum that seemed to echo the chill that still lingered in the air, a silent, persistent reminder of the supernatural encounter I had just experienced, leaving me with more questions than answers. I tried to recall any details about her appearance, beyond the dark coat and bowed head. My memory, usually sharp, felt hazy, as if the experience itself had been designed to resist clear recollection. Every time I tried to pinpoint a feature, it blurred like trying to grasp smoke. It was as if she existed on the periphery of perception, intentionally indistinct, a fleeting vision that vanished upon direct focus, a ghostly figure that left no clear imprint on my mind, only a profound sense of unease. The rain had now reduced to a light drizzle, a soft, rhythmic patter against the windshield that seemed to punctuate my racing thoughts. The city lights, once a blur, now sharpened into distinct points of light, but they offered no solace, no logical explanation for the impossible events of the night. The silence in the car felt heavy, thick with the weight of the unexplained, and I knew, with a chilling certainty, that this wasn't just a strange fare. It was the beginning of something much larger, something that had chosen me. As I drove, my eyes kept darting to the rearview mirror, even though the back seat was empty. It was an involuntary reflex, a desperate search for something, anything, that might shed light on the passenger's disappearance. The old compass, now resting on the passenger seat beside me, pulsed faintly. And in the mirror, for a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of a subtle distortion in the air where she had been. It was like a ripple in water, a faint, almost transparent shimmer, a silent echo of her spectral presence. The faint shimmer in the rearview mirror, that ripple in the air where she had sat, was undeniable, a chilling echo of her form. It was like heat haze, yet it radiated cold, and it pulsed faintly, almost imperceptibly, in sync with the subtle tremor I still felt from the antique compass. My mind raced, trying to grasp the implications of what I was witnessing. This wasn't a trick of light or a sleepy illusion, but a tangible manifestation of her spectral presence, slowly fading with the retreating rain. I kept my eyes fixed on the mirror, hoping for another, clearer glimpse, but it remained a faint, elusive distortion. The cold in the car seemed to deepen, settling around me like a shroud, and the earthy, metallic scent grew more potent, filling my nostrils with its ancient, acrid breath. It was the scent of damp earth and something else, something indefinable, that spoke of forgotten places and restless spirits, a sensory link to the impossible passenger. Suddenly, a series of frantic knocks rattled the passenger window next to me, sharp and insistent. My heart leaped into my throat, and I swerved instinctively, nearly hitting the curb. It was a man, his face pressed against the glass, his eyes wide with a frantic urgency. He was soaked to the bone, his clothes clinging to him, and he was shouting something, his voice muffled by the remaining drizzle, but his expression was one of undeniable panic. I slammed on the brakes, my tires screeching faintly on the wet asphalt. Who was he? And why was he knocking so frantically? My mind, still reeling from the vanishing passenger, struggled to process this new, sudden intrusion. The man's face was contorted with fear, and he pointed a trembling finger towards the back of my car, his mouth still moving in silent, desperate shouts, his gaze fixed on something I couldn't see. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror. The faint shimmer where my invisible passenger had been was now gone, completely vanished. But in its place, for a split second, I saw a reflection, not of a person, but of a subtle, almost ethereal light, like distant lightning, flickering deep within the glass of the back window. Then it too disappeared, leaving only the dark, empty seat and the terrified, desperate face of the man at my window, confirming that something terrifying had just happened in my car. The man at my window was still shouting, his face a mask of terror, pointing frantically towards my empty back seat. His movements were jerky, his body trembling, and his eyes, wide with a profound dread, were fixed on the very spot where the ethereal light had just flickered. He was clearly witnessing something, or had just witnessed something, that mirrored my own horrifying experience, a shared encounter with the inexplicable that transcended mere coincidence, confirming my terrifying reality. I stared at him, my mind a blank, grappling with the sheer impossibility of the situation. Who was this man? And what did he know? The rain, now a light drizzle, still danced on the windshield, a soft, rhythmic patter that seemed to mock the frantic beat of my heart. The chill in the car was profound, raising goosebumps on my arms, a physical manifestation of the lingering, supernatural presence, a coldness that spoke of ancient places and restless spirits. He pounded on the glass again, his voice now a desperate, muffled plea, his finger still shaking as he pointed to the back seat. I instinctively reached for the door lock, a primal urge to protect myself from whatever horror he was witnessing, or whatever unknown connection he had to my vanished passenger. His face, illuminated by the dim streetlights, held an unmistakable look of warning, a desperate attempt to convey an unspeakable truth that was too vast for words. Then, just as I was about to lower the window, to try and understand his frantic message, his eyes widened further, fixed on something behind me. His mouth opened in a silent scream, his face contorting in pure, unadulterated terror, and he abruptly stumbled backward, disappearing from my view as if pulled by an unseen force, vanishing into the night's lingering mist and the faint, rhythmic drumming of the rain. I sat there, utterly paralyzed, my gaze fixed on the empty space where the man had been. The profound silence that followed his sudden disappearance was even more terrifying than his frantic shouts. My breath caught in my throat, and I slowly turned my head to look at the rearview mirror one last time. It was utterly empty, reflecting only the dark, uninviting house at the end of the street. But resting on the back seat, clearly visible in the dim light, was a single, fresh, muddy footprint, impossibly large and undeniably human. A chilling testament to a solid presence that had briefly been there and vanished with the rain, leaving me with a terrifying, tangible clue. The muddy footprint on my backseat floor mat, stark against the dark fabric, was a cold, undeniable proof of a physical presence that had just vanished. It was impossibly large, a clear imprint of a heavy boot, and it defied every logical explanation for the disappearing passenger. My eyes darted from the footprint to the empty space where the frantic man had been, the suddenness of his departure adding another layer of chilling mystery to the already inexplicable events of the night. The rain had now softened to a whisper, a gentle patter against the windshield that seemed to mock the frantic beat of my heart. The chill in the car was profound, a lingering spectral cold that clung to the upholstery, and the faint, earthy scent, now mixed with the acrid smell of damp mud, permeated the air, a constant, unsettling reminder of the impossible encounter. I knew, with a horrifying certainty, that my life as a simple rideshare driver had just taken an irrevocably supernatural turn. My hand trembled as I reached for my phone, its screen still displaying the completed ride and the 5-star rating, for AN. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. I tried to call the customer service, but my fingers fumbled, unable to type, my mind still reeling from the shock. How could I even begin to explain what had just happened? A passenger who vanished, a frantic stranger, and a muddy footprint left by... what? Driven by a desperate need for answers, I decided to return to the pickup location, the dimly lit side street where AN had first appeared. Perhaps the frantic man had been waiting for her there. Or perhaps there was another clue, something I had missed in my initial, fear-addled approach. The antique compass, still lying on my passenger seat, seemed to pulse faintly, its tarnished silver a subtle beacon in the confusing aftermath of the night. I navigated the wet streets, my headlights cutting through the lingering mist. The residential area was silent, its houses dark and uninviting, sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the supernatural events that had unfolded within their quiet corners. The pickup spot was just as I remembered, a lonely stretch of curb beneath a flickering streetlight. But there was no sign of the frantic man, no trace of anyone, only the shimmering puddles reflecting the dim, unsettling glow of the street lamp. I sat there for a long moment, idling my car, the silence now broken only by the soft drip-drip of water from the trees and the faint, persistent click-click of my turn signal. The street was utterly deserted, swallowed by the gloom of the late night. It was as if the frantic man, like my passenger, had simply ceased to exist, erased by the very rain that now gently fell. The antique compass on my passenger seat felt cold against the upholstery, a silent witness to the night's impossible events. My gaze drifted to the house at the pickup address. It was an old Victorian, its paint peeling, windows dark and boarded up. It looked utterly abandoned, even more, so now that the initial shock had worn off, and I could observe it properly. There were no lights, no signs of life, just a pervasive sense of emptiness that seemed to emanate from its decaying facade, a chilling incongruity with a rideshare pickup. I pulled over, parking across the street from the house, and killed my engine. The sudden silence was heavy, amplifying the rhythmic patter-patter of the soft rain on the roof. I felt an undeniable pull, a compulsion to investigate the abandoned house, to find some answer, some clue, to the enigma of my vanishing passenger and the frantic man who had pointed at her empty seat, his face a mask of terror. The air outside was cold and damp, carrying the lingering scent of wet earth and something else, a faint, musty odor, like old wood and forgotten memories, emanating from the dilapidated house. I walked slowly towards it, my footsteps muffled by the wet leaves. On the overgrown lawn, the front porch sagged, its planks groaning under my weight, and the silence here was even deeper, more profound. A chilling vacuum that seemed to swallow all sound. As I approached the front door, a subtle distortion in the air, a faint shimmer, like heat haze, caught my eye, directly in front of the boarded-up windows. It was barely there, a fleeting ripple, but it sent a fresh wave of cold dread through me. It was the same ephemeral presence I had glimpsed in my rearview mirror, a spectral echo, now lingering at the abandoned house, a chilling confirmation that the invisible passenger had indeed been here, and perhaps still was. The subtle distortion in the air, that ghost of a shimmer, pulsed faintly before the boarded-up windows of the old Victorian, confirming that my invisible passenger had been here. It was a chilling realization, rooting me to the overgrown lawn, my gaze fixed on the empty space that still radiated a profound coldness. The metallic earthy scent, now much stronger, filled my nostrils, an acrid reminder of her spectral presence, making the hairs on my arms prickle. A faint, almost imperceptible sound, like a soft sigh or a gentle rustle of fabric, seemed to emanate from within the dark house. It was barely audible above the light patter of the rain, yet it sent a fresh wave of dread through me. Was she still here? Was this the destination she had been searching for? A place of rest? Or was it merely another stop on a never-ending journey? A point of painful recollection for a restless spirit? My gaze drifted to the broken window on the ground floor, its glass long gone, leaving a jagged, dark opening. The silence from within the house was oppressive, thick with forgotten secrets and a palpable sense of abandonment. I felt an undeniable pull, a compulsion to enter, to find what lay beyond the threshold, to unravel the mystery that clung to this derelict property, to understand the truth behind the invisible passenger. As I took a hesitant step towards the broken window, a sudden sharp crack echoed from the nearby woods, followed by a low, mournful moan. It was a familiar sound, the same agonizing wail I had heard moments before from the frantic man, now more distant, but unmistakably filled with a deep, profound sorrow. It sent a fresh wave of terror through me, a chilling confirmation that he too was inextricably linked to this house and the vanishing passenger. I froze, my gaze darting towards the woods, but the dense trees and lingering mist offered no visible explanation. The moan faded, replaced by the persistent, soft patter of the rain, but the image of the frantic man's face, contorted in terror, was burned into my mind. He had been pointing at her, at the empty back seat, and now his mournful cry emanated from the very direction in which he had vanished, a chilling testament to his fate, or his continued torment, entwined with the mystery of the abandoned house. The chilling realization that the frantic man's mournful cry emanated from the woods, where he had vanished, filled me with a fresh wave of terror. His direct connection to the invisible passenger and this abandoned house was undeniable, a horrifying link that solidified the supernatural nature of the night. The lingering mist, now swirling around me, seemed to thicken, making the already dim surroundings even more indistinct, isolating me further in this unsettling revelation. I backed away slowly from the broken window, my gaze fixed on the dark, opening, half expecting to see a shadowy figure emerge from within. The air around the house grew colder, a palpable chill that spoke of ancient abandonment and restless spirits. That faint, metallic, earthy scent, now overwhelming, clung to my clothes, a constant, acrid reminder of the entity that had been, and perhaps still was, connected to this place. My eyes fell upon a small, weathered wooden sign near the overgrown gate, almost swallowed by ivy. The faded, hand-painted letters were barely legible. The Blackburn Residence. A name. It was a small piece of a very large puzzle, a tangible clue that felt like a lifeline in the sea of the inexplicable. Perhaps by knowing the name of the family, I could finally begin to unravel the tragic history of this house and its connection to the invisible passenger. Driven by a renewed sense of purpose, a desperate need for answers that overshadowed my fear, I pulled out my phone, its screen now a beacon in the gloom. I typed Blackburn Residence into the search bar, hoping for anything. Old news articles, property records, anything that could shed light on this place. The rain, now a mere whisper, seemed to encourage me, a soft rhythm against the trees, as if the very night was urging me to discover the truth. As the search results began to load, a single, compelling headline caught my eye, its words searing themselves into my mind. Tragedy strikes Blackburn family. Daughter vanishes after storm. The date accompanying the article was decades old, yet the mention of storm and vanishes sent a fresh wave of dread through me. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anticipation, as I realized I was on the verge of uncovering the dark, forgotten history of my invisible passenger, a truth that would surely connect to the lingering mystery of the rain. The glowing headline, "Tragedy Strikes Blackburn Family, Daughter Vanishes After Storm," seemed to vibrate on my phone screen, its words chillingly mirroring the events of my own night. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the profound silence of the abandoned Blackburn residence. The date of the article, decades old, hinted at a long-buried secret, a historical echo of the impossible passenger I had just encountered, suggesting a terrifying cyclical pattern tied to the relentless rain. I tapped the headline, the screen refreshing to reveal the full article. It was a scanned newspaper clipping, yellowed and faded, detailing the disappearance of a young woman named Eleanor Blackburn, aged 19, during a severe thunderstorm exactly 50 years ago to the day. Her parents, distraught, reported her missing after she failed to return home from a drive. The article mentioned extensive search efforts, but no trace of Eleanor or her car was ever found, leading authorities to conclude she had simply vanished without a trace into the stormy night. The article provided a grainy photograph of Eleanor, a smiling young woman with bright, curious eyes and long dark hair. As I stared at her face, a jolt of recognition, cold and sharp, shot through me. It was the same indistinct, blurry face I had glimpsed in my rearview mirror, the same ethereal shimmer that had accompanied my invisible passenger. The resemblance was undeniable, a horrifying confirmation that the spectral presence in my car had been Eleanor Blackburn. forever trapped in a tragic loop. A profound sadness washed over me, mingling with the lingering fear. Eleanor, a young woman lost in a storm, now doomed to endlessly repeat her final journey. The small, shimmering puddle on my floor mat, the antique compass, the frantic man's mournful cry, all were pieces of her fragmented existence, echoes of a life violently interrupted. The rain, now a soft drizzle, seemed to weep with me, a melancholic backdrop to the unearthed tragedy. The article included a brief mention of local speculation, whispers of a curse of the rain that plagued the Blackburn family, and rumors that Eleanor had always been different, prone to wandering during storms, almost as if drawn by an unseen force. It was dismissed as superstition, but for me, having experienced her impossible presence, it resonated with a chilling truth. Her vanishing wasn't just a physical disappearance. It was a transition, a spectral existence forever bound to the rain-soaked roads of Oakhaven. My gaze lingered on Eleanor's faded photograph, a poignant image from a time long past. Yet her story was now undeniably intertwined with my present. The article detailed how her car, a vintage convertible, was found abandoned on a secluded back road, miles from Oakhaven, its doors ajar, but no sign of a struggle or foul play. This detail resonated with the odd emptiness of my back seat, and the way her ride had ended, a silent, almost ritualistic disappearance. The profound stillness of the abandoned Blackburn residence pressed in around me, amplifying the eerie sense of connection. The faint, metallic, earthy scent that clung to my car now seemed to permeate the very air around the house, a signature of Eleanor's spectral presence. The rain, now a mere drizzle, seemed to weep softly, a mournful accompaniment to the tragic history I was unearthing, connecting me intimately to her long-lost journey. I scrolled further down the article, searching for any other relevant details. It mentioned that Eleanor had been known to enjoy driving during storms, finding a strange comfort in the solitude of the rain-soaked roads. This explained why she would be out on such a night, but it also hinted at a deeper, almost compulsive connection she had to the weather, a pre-existing condition that may have predated her disappearance and tied her to the supernatural. A small, sidebar entry caught my eye. The unexplained phenomenon of the rain-swept road. It recounted a series of local anecdotes, whispers among the older residents, about drivers occasionally seeing a figure, indistinct and fleeting on isolated roads, during heavy downpours. These sightings were always dismissed as fog-induced illusions or tired imaginations, but they always occurred along the same stretch of road where Eleanor's car was found, creating an eerie pattern. My mind raced, connecting the threads. Eleanor's affinity for driving in storms, her vanishing act, the local folklore, and my own terrifying encounter. It wasn't a random haunting. It was a specific, repetitive phenomenon. A soul perpetually lost on her final journey, manifesting only when the conditions were right, when the rain called to her. This wasn't just a ghost. It was an echo, a living memory of a tragic moment, forever bound to the storm. My gaze drifted from the screen, past the crumbling facade of the Blackburn residence, towards the winding back roads that snaked into the distant, tree-lined hills. It was along one of those forgotten routes that Eleanor's car had been found, an empty vessel waiting for a passenger who would never truly return. The antique silver compass, still resting on my passenger seat, seemed to hum faintly. Its cold surface a tangible link to the phantom journey of its original owner, a subtle beacon in the unfolding mystery. The rain, now a mere whisper against the leaves, softened the edges of the dark woods, making them seem even more ominous, as if holding secrets within their depths. I imagined Eleanor driving through this very landscape decades ago, perhaps with that same compass beside her, drawn by a premonition or a compulsion into the heart of the storm. The air grew heavy with the scent of damp earth and something indefinable, a lingering sadness that seemed to permeate the very ground. My phone chimed, pulling me from my morbid thoughts. It was a new ride request, but I ignored it. The urgency of Eleanor's story now consumed me, pushing aside the mundane demands of my job. I had to know more, to understand the full scope of her tragedy, and why, after 50 years, she was still lost, still seeking a ride in the heart of a storm. The sense of responsibility, of a strange connection to her fate, settled deeply within my chest, a profound weight. I began to scroll through local online archives, searching for any additional information on the Blackburn family or the curse of the rain. I found old community forums, dusty digital scrapbooks, and a few obituaries that mentioned Eleanor's parents, their lives overshadowed by the enduring mystery of their daughter's disappearance. It was clear that her vanishing had left an indelible mark on Oakhaven, a wound that never truly healed, a silent testament to a grief that lingered. One archived comment on a local history blog caught my attention. It was from an anonymous user, posted years ago, simply stating, "She was already gone before she left. The rain just made it visible." The cryptic message sent a chill down my spine. It hinted at something deeper than a mere accident or disappearance, suggesting Eleanor's spectral nature might have preceded her death. A chilling premonition that she was always destined to be an invisible passenger, a haunting presence forever, bound to the storm. The anonymous comment, "She was already gone before she left. The rain just made it visible," reverberated in my mind. A chilling whisper of a truth far more profound than simple tragedy. It suggested Eleanor's spectral nature wasn't a consequence of her disappearance, but a pre-existing condition, a subtle transparency that only the veil of rain could fully reveal. The antique compass, cold and inert on my passenger seat, suddenly felt like a key to her entire existence, a device for navigating realms beyond mortal sight. My gaze drifted from the phone screen to the old Blackburn residence, now bathed in the pale, ethereal glow of the early morning light. The boarded-up windows seemed to stare back, blank and unseeing, yet I felt a strong, undeniable presence, a lingering echo of Eleanor, forever bound to this place. The rain, now a mere memory, left the air clean and crisp, yet the faint earthy scent, like damp soil, still clung to the atmosphere around the house, a subtle reminder of her spectral touch. A sudden, sharp drop in temperature made me shiver, even though the sun was beginning to break through the clouds. It was a localized cold, emanating from the abandoned house, a pocket of chill that defied the warming morning. It was the same chilling cold that had filled my car during the ride, a distinct signature of Eleanor's spectral presence, confirming that even in the light of day, her essence lingered, a quiet, lingering mournfulness. My phone, still displaying. The article suddenly vibrated with a new notification. It was a rideshare request. The pickup location was less than a mile away, on a secluded, rain-soaked road that wound deeper into the woods, the very stretch of road where Eleanor's car had been found 50 years ago. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a beckoning, an undeniable sign that Eleanor's journey, her search for a ride, was not over, and that the rain, even in its absence, still held its power over her. A profound sense of inevitability settled over me. I had unearthed her story, learned her tragic truth, and now it seemed her restless spirit was calling to me again, drawing me back into the heart of her eternal journey. The silent, empty back seat of my car seemed to hum with an unseen anticipation, a chilling promise of another encounter with the invisible passenger, and a new, terrifying chapter in my life that the persistent memory of the rain would forever bind. The new rideshare request, pinpointing the very road where Eleanor Blackburn's car was found decades ago, sent a chill of profound recognition through me. It wasn't just a coincidence. It was a beckoning, a silent summons from a spirit bound to the storm. The sun, though rising, seemed to cast long, eerie shadows across the landscape, and the air, though clear, still held a faint, lingering scent of damp earth, a subtle ghost of the rain that had defined her fate. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel, a mix of fear and an almost morbid fascination propelling me forward. I knew, with a horrifying certainty, that this was not a random fare. This was Eleanor, her restless spirit reaching out again, perhaps seeking a ride, or perhaps, in her eternal loop, recreating the very moments of her vanishing. The antique compass, cold and inert on the passenger seat, seemed to pulse faintly, its silent presence a key to the spectral journey. As I drove towards the pickup location, the familiar streets of Oakhaven seemed to shift, taking on a new, ominous quality. Every turn, every tree, every shadowed house felt imbued with a hidden history, a silent witness to the tragedy of Eleanor Blackburn and the enduring mystery of her disappearance. The air grew colder as I left the main roads, the temperature dropping inexplicably, a palpable sign of the supernatural presence drawing near. The road itself, winding and secluded, was now damp, the remnants of the night's rainfall clinging to the asphalt and the surrounding foliage, the dense woods on either side pressed in, their branches forming a shadowy canopy that seemed to swallow the nascent morning light. It was a place of isolation, of forgotten memories, a perfect stage for a recurring tragedy. The silence here was profound, broken only by the soft hum of my engine and the rhythmic drip-drip of water from the leaves. I pulled over at the exact coordinates, a desolate stretch of road where the trees met the asphalt, their branches reaching like skeletal fingers. There was no sign of a physical passenger, no one waiting under the faint glow of the distant streetlights. But as I cut the engine, plunging the immediate area into deeper silence, the air in my car grew frigid, and that faint, metallic, earthy scent returned, stronger than ever, filling my lungs with its ancient, acrid breath, a chilling confirmation of her invisible presence. I sat in the profound silence, the chilling cold in the car wrapping around me like a shroud. My breath plumed faintly in the frigid air, a stark contrast to the invisible passenger's apparent lack of it. The metallic, earthy scent, now overwhelming, filled my lungs, a tangible signature of her spectral presence. It felt as if I was waiting for her to materialize, to take her seat as she had before, a strange, terrifying anticipation in the heart of the quiet woods. My eyes instinctively darted to the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty, but where she had sat, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer pulsed in the air, a subtle distortion like heat haze, yet it radiated cold. It was the same ephemeral presence I had glimpsed before, now stronger, more defined, a silent echo of her form, subtly moving, almost adjusting itself to the seat, confirming her arrival. A faint rhythmic drip, drip, drip began to sound from somewhere within the car, distinct from the occasional water dripping from the trees outside. It was a soft, steady rhythm, like water slowly collecting, perhaps on the floor mat, or within the car's very frame. My gaze dropped to the floor mat. Sure enough, a new small puddle was forming, shimmering faintly in the dim light, growing steadily, a fresh, undeniable sign of her materializing presence, echoing the previous encounter. The chill in the car intensified, and with it, a faint, almost inaudible whisper brushed against my ear. It was a single, indistinct word, fleeting and ethereal, like a breath of wind, yet it was undeniably a voice, soft and mournful. It was a word I couldn't quite decipher, a ghostly murmur that seemed to rise from the accumulating puddle, filling my mind with a profound sense of sorrow and desperate longing, a direct communication from the invisible passenger. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the oppressive silence. This was it. She was here, undeniably. Not just an echo, but a more solid, more present manifestation. The antique compass, resting on the passenger seat, began to vibrate faintly, its tarnished silver humming with a low, resonant thrum, in sync with the cold tremor that ran through my body, responding to the invisible presence in my back seat, guiding me further into the impossible. The single mournful whisper, though indistinct, was undeniably a voice, filling my mind with a profound sense of sorrow that felt deeply personal. It was as if Eleanor was trying to communicate, her desperation a palpable weight in the frigid air. The antique compass, now vibrating continuously on the passenger seat, seemed to hum in response, its cold surface a conduit to her silent plea, a signal that she was more than just a phantom echo. I instinctively reached for the rearview mirror again, my gaze fixed on the empty back seat. The faint shimmer where she sat was now more defined, a subtle distortion that hinted at the outline of a hunched figure, almost translucent, like an image seen through rippling water. It was a fleeting, horrifying glimpse of a human form, devoid of color or clear features, yet unmistakably there, a terrifying confirmation of her presence, slowly manifesting with the accumulating moisture. The rhythmic drip, drip, drip from the accumulating puddle on the floor mat intensified, becoming a steady stream, as if the water was flowing directly from her spectral form. The chill in the car deepened, seeping into my bones, and the metallic earthy scent grew stronger, a cloying, acrid aroma that filled my lungs, a tangible signature of her spectral manifestation. The world outside the car seemed to fade, consumed by the oppressive atmosphere within. A sudden, sharp rap against the back passenger window made me jump, my heart leaping into my throat. My eyes darted to the window. There was nothing there, just the dark, rain-streaked glass. It was a jarring sound, too deliberate to be a random stone, and too distinct from the gentle drizzle outside. It felt like a warning, or perhaps a frustrated attempt at communication from my invisible passenger, a desperate plea to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged. The tapping came again, softer this time, but persistent, a faint rap, rap, rap against the glass, just behind where her translucent form seemed to hover. My gaze returned to the rearview mirror. The shimmer intensified, and for a terrifying moment, the indistinct outline of her face seemed to press against the glass from the inside, a blurry, featureless mask of sorrow, her eyes, though unseen, fixed upon my reflection, a silent, desperate plea that sent a fresh wave of primal fear through me, rooting me to the spot. The indistinct, blurry face pressing against the back window, visible only as a translucent ripple in the mirror, was a terrifying manifestation of Eleanor's desperation. Her unseen eyes seemed to bore into mine, a silent plea emanating from her spectral form. The rhythmic tapping against the glass intensified, a frantic rap, rap, rap that echoed the pounding in my chest, a desperate attempt to break through the veil between worlds, to make herself truly seen. The cold in the car was now unbearable, a biting chill that radiated directly from the back seat, seeping into my very bones. The metallic, earthy scent was overpowering, making my head spin with its acrid intensity. It was the smell of damp soil and something ancient, something that had been lost for too long, finally making its presence undeniable, a potent combination that confirmed her full, terrifying manifestation. "What do you want?" I whispered, my voice a strained, hoarse sound that barely cut through the oppressive atmosphere. The question hung in the air, swallowed by the profound silence, save for the incessant tapping and the faint, mournful hum that now emanated from the translucent form in the mirror. There was no verbal answer, only an intensification of her spectral presence, a silent, desperate communication that transcended words. Suddenly, a series of rapid, almost frantic images flashed through my mind, superimposed over my vision of the empty back seat. Glimpses of a winding, rain-slicked road, a car spinning wildly, a desperate, reaching hand, and then utter darkness, filled with a profound, echoing sadness. It was her memory, a traumatic replay of her final moments, forced into my consciousness, a terrifying invitation to witness her tragedy firsthand, a glimpse into the endless loop she was trapped in. The visions faded, leaving me gasping for breath, my mind reeling from the raw, unfiltered terror of her last moments. The tapping ceased, and the translucent face in the mirror seemed to recede, becoming a faint shimmer once more. The air in the car, though still cold, began to lighten, as if the energy had drained from her. I knew then that she wasn't malevolent. She was trapped, desperate for help. And with a chilling resolve, I understood my purpose. I had to find a way to break her loop, to finally bring peace to the invisible passenger, a task that would require delving deeper into the tragic history of Oakhaven and the mysteries of the rain. The raw, unfiltered terror of Eleanor's final moments, forced into my consciousness, faded, leaving behind a profound sadness and an undeniable sense of purpose. She wasn't a malevolent spirit. She was a soul trapped, endlessly reliving her last moments, desperate for release. The profound chill in my car, though still present, now felt less menacing and more like a lingering sorrow, a physical manifestation of her endless loop. The antique compass, now cool against the seat, seemed to hum faintly with a new, quiet urgency, guiding me towards a new path. My previous fear had been replaced by a fierce determination. I had to help her. But how? Her story, buried for 50 years, needed more than just a passing glance. I needed to understand the unexplained phenomenon mentioned in the article, to find out if anyone else in Oakhaven had encountered Eleanor's spectral presence, or knew more about the curse of the rain that seemingly bound her to this existence. The soft patter of the rain outside my car, now a gentle drizzle, seemed to echo her mournful whispers. I drove back to my cottage, the quiet of the early morning settling around me like a heavy blanket. The memory of the frantic man who had pointed at my empty back seat, his face a mask of terror, returned to me. Was he a witness too? Or was his fate intertwined with Eleanor's, another victim of the repeating pattern? His mournful cry, echoing from the woods, suddenly made chilling sense. He was mourning not just his own terrifying encounter, but perhaps Eleanor's endless torment. My first step was to return to the Oak Haven Public Library. Mrs. Gable, with her quiet wisdom and knowledge of local history, seemed like the most likely person to possess deeper insights into Eleanor's story beyond the brief newspaper article. She had hinted at old stories, things people don't talk about openly anymore, and now I desperately needed to uncover those hidden truths, even if they were steeped in folklore and forgotten tragedies. The library was quiet, the scent of old paper and dust a comforting presence. Mrs. Gable looked up as I entered, her gaze sharp, as if she expected my return. "Amelia, dear," she said, her voice a soft murmur. "You look as though you've seen a ghost." I forced a weak smile, the irony not lost on me. "Something like that, Mrs. Gable. I need to know more about Eleanor Blackburn. Everything. And any local legends, any whispers about people vanishing in the rain." Her eyes, which had been warm, now flickered with a profound, almost fearful understanding, a clear sign that I was treading on dangerous ground. Mrs. Gable led me to a dusty section of the library, behind shelves filled with outdated almanacs and forgotten local genealogies. Her movements were slow, almost deliberate, as if each step carried the weight of unspoken warnings. She pulled out a large, leather-bound scrapbook, its pages brittle with age, filled with old newspaper clippings and faded photographs. The scent of dust and ancient paper filled the air, thick with the weight of forgotten histories and the lingering presence of a past that refused to stay buried. "Eleanor Blackburn," she began, her voice a low murmur, barely above a whisper, "was a quiet girl, a bit ethereal even before. Always drawn to the rain, they said. Her parents, good people, never quite recovered." She pointed to a blurry photo of a young Eleanor standing in a garden, her figure strangely indistinct against the background, even in the clear sunlight. It was a subtle detail, but one that resonated chillingly with my own encounters, a disturbing premonition of her spectral future. The scrapbook contained dozens of clippings about Eleanor's disappearance, far more than the single article I had found online. There were appeals from her parents, desperate pleas for information, and reports from search parties. But as I flipped through the pages, a disturbing pattern emerged. Each article mentioned the heavy rain, the unceasing downpour that accompanied her final drive, always linking the storm to her vanishing, as if the weather itself was a character in her tragedy. "Some old-timers, they talked," Mrs. Gable continued, her voice filled with a subtle melancholy. "Whispers in the diner, hushed tones at church picnics. They said Eleanor sometimes seemed to fade in bright sunlight, becoming almost translucent. They thought it was just poor eyesight or too much imagination. But when the rain came, they said, she became sharper, more vivid, almost like she was finally solidifying. My blood ran cold. This was the already gone before she left that the anonymous blog comment had alluded to. Suddenly, a heavy book tumbled from a shelf above us, landing on the floor with a loud thump, scattering dust into the air. Mrs. Gable and I both jumped, our hearts pounding. It was an old atlas, thick and unwieldy. As I knelt to pick it up, its pages fell open to a detailed map of Oak Haven and its surrounding areas, and my gaze was drawn to a small, almost imperceptible symbol etched onto the map, near the very road where Eleanor's car had been found. A tiny, stylized raindrop, crossed by a faint, almost invisible line, a cryptic warning. The old atlas lay open on the dusty library floor, its faded pages revealing a detailed map of Oakhaven. My gaze was fixed on the tiny, stylized raindrop crossed by a faint, almost invisible line, etched near the very road where Eleanor's car had been found. It was a cryptic symbol, yet it resonated deeply with the unsettling revelations about Eleanor's vanishing, a silent clue hidden in plain sight, suggesting a long-forgotten truth. "What is this symbol, Mrs. Gable?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, pointing to the delicate etching. Mrs. Gable leaned closer, her eyes, though weary, sharpened with a profound knowing. "Ah, that. An old protection ward they used to call it," she murmured, her finger tracing the faded lines. "From the water walkers, as the old native tribes used to say, spirits of those lost in water, who can only traverse the land when the rain falls, seeking their way home." Her words sent a chill down my spine, confirming my deepest fears. Eleanor wasn't just a ghost. She was a water walker, a spirit bound to the rain, endlessly seeking her way home. Her journey a continuous loop on the very roads where she had vanished. The antique compass, still in my car, now seemed to possess a new, profound significance. Perhaps a tool to guide such lost souls, or to protect against them. "This road," Mrs. Gable continued, her voice heavy with unspoken history, pointing to the stretch marked by the symbol, "is where they say the veil between worlds is thinnest during a storm, where boundaries blur. Eleanor, she was already so close to the other side. The rain didn't take her, it just completed her transition, and it made her visible." Her words painted a chilling picture of Eleanor's pre-existing spectral nature, explaining the anonymous blog comment. My mind raced, connecting the dots. Eleanor's strange affinity for rain, her partial transparency, the water walker's lore, and the symbolic map. It all pointed to a deeper, more complex supernatural phenomenon. Not a mere haunting, but a profound connection between her essence and the element of water. I realized then that my journey to help her wouldn't just be about breaking a loop. It would be about understanding the very nature of her spectral existence, and perhaps finding a way to guide her across the true threshold, a journey beyond the rain. The revelation of the water walkers and the symbolic map filled me with a desperate urgency. I needed to find someone who remembered more than just the old stories, someone who truly understood the supernatural occurrences linked to Oakhaven and its surrounding roads. Mrs. Gable, though helpful, was limited by her second-hand knowledge. I needed a direct witness, someone who had seen or experienced the inexplicable phenomena firsthand, someone who could confirm the ancient lore. My mind immediately went to the older residents of Oakhaven, the ones who had lived through Eleanor's disappearance, whose memories might hold the key to breaking her endless loop. I thought of old Mr. Abernathy, who ran the dusty hardware store, his eyes always seeming to hold a depth of unspoken knowledge. Or perhaps Mrs. Henderson, the town's oldest resident, whose porch was a known gathering place for local gossip and forgotten tales. I thanked Mrs. Gable, the old atlas and scrapbook clutched tightly in my hands, and hurried out of the library. The sun had broken through the clouds, casting a deceptive warmth over Oakhaven, but the chill of Eleanor's story lingered, a constant, pervasive cold that seeped into my bones. The antique compass, still in my car, seemed to hum faintly, its silent presence a reminder of the spectral journey I was now irrevocably committed to. As I drove towards the heart of Oakhaven, passing familiar landmarks, I noticed a subtle shift in the air, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor that resonated with the coldness in my car. It was strongest as I passed the old, unused town well, its stone rim covered in ancient moss. For a fleeting second, in my rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of a faint shimmer above its dark opening, a translucent ripple that suggested a transient, spectral presence, a silent echo of Eleanor's subtle manifestation. The shimmer vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only the profound silence of the empty well. But it was a clear sign. Eleanor's presence was not confined to the roads where she vanished. It was tied to water, to the very essence of Oak Haven's, underlying streams and springs. I knew then that to truly understand her, to find a way to guide her home, I needed to seek out the oldest voices of Oak Haven, those who might remember the ancient folklore, the legends, and perhaps the tragic truth of the town's invisible passenger, the answers now lying within the memories of an old man who lived by the bridge. The knowledge that Eleanor's presence was tied not just to rain-soaked roads, but to the very essence of water, hinted at a deeper, more primal connection to Oak Haven's underlying streams and springs. My immediate thought was to seek out Mr. Eldridge, the town's oldest living resident, a man whose memory stretched back further than any others. His tiny, weather-beaten house stood by the old stone bridge, near the winding creek, a place where water constantly flowed, perhaps a fitting location for unlocking Eleanor's enduring mystery. The sun was high now, casting long shadows across the quiet streets of Oak Haven, but the chill of Eleanor's story still clung to me, a pervasive cold that defied the warmth of the morning. The antique compass, resting on my car's dashboard, seemed to pulse with a faint, almost imperceptible tremor, a subtle beacon in the confusing aftermath of the night's inexplicable events. It was a tangible link to the phantom journey of its original owner, a silent guide in my desperate search for answers. Mr. Eldridge's house was nestled amidst a riot of overgrown roses and ancient oak trees, their branches heavy with moss. The air here was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, a soothing contrast to the metallic tang that had permeated my car. The rhythmic gurgle of the creek beneath the old stone bridge was a constant, almost hypnotic sound, and I felt a strange sense of anticipation, a premonition that this place and this old man held the key to Eleanor's fate. I knocked on his weathered oak door, its surface smooth from years of use, and waited. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the gentle murmur of the creek. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing Mr. Eldridge. His eyes, though clouded by age, held a surprising sharpness, a depth of unspoken knowledge that seemed to pierce through my own apprehension. And he looked at me as if he had been expecting me all along. "Sarah," he rasped, his voice a dry, gravelly sound, like stones shifting in a forgotten riverbed. He didn't ask how I knew his name, or why I was there, simply acknowledged my presence with a knowing nod. His gaze was fixed on something beyond me, towards the direction of the creek, and I felt a profound sense of inevitability. She's been restless, hasn't she? The rain brings her out, always has. His words, quiet and matter-of-fact, sent a fresh wave of chills down my spine, confirming his deep, intimate knowledge of Eleanor's spectral existence. Mr. Eldridge motioned for me to sit on his worn wooden porch swing, its chains creaking softly under our combined weight. The rhythmic gurgle of the creek below the bridge was a constant, soothing backdrop to his unsettling words, a deceptive calm that belied the profound mystery he was about to unravel. The antique compass, still in my pocket, seemed to hum faintly, its cold surface a subtle echo of the spectral presence that had led me to this old man. "Eleanor was a unique soul," he began. his gaze fixed on the gently flowing water of the creek. His voice a low, raspy murmur. Even as a child, she was different. They called it being lost in thought, but I knew better. Sometimes when the rain would just begin to fall, or the mist was thick, she'd seem to thin out, like a watercolor painting drying too quickly. Her edges would blur, her form almost translucent, even to the naked eye. He paused, a profound sadness in his eyes, as if reliving a distant memory. Her parents, they worried, of course, tried to keep her indoors on rainy days, but she felt the call, you see, the call of the water. It was a part of her, a connection older than anyone understood. The old native tales speak of it, of souls born with a water veil, a subtle transparency that draws them to the element, making them almost invisible in its presence. My mind raced, connecting his words to the anonymous blog comment. She was already gone before she left. The rain just made it visible. It wasn't just a metaphor. It was a literal truth. Eleanor had always been partially ethereal, her spirit already blurring the lines between worlds, and the final storm had merely completed her transition, anchoring her fully to her spectral existence within the rain, making her the invisible passenger. On that night, the night she vanished, Mr. Eldridge continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper. The storm was unlike any Oakhaven had seen. The rain didn't just fall, it seemed to consume everything. I was by the bridge, saw her car pass, her silhouette faint behind the streaking rain. And then, moments later, I saw it again, or thought I did. A shimmer, like a heat haze, but cold, moving alongside her car. A second presence in the storm, guiding her towards the road where they found her car. Mr. Eldridge's eyes, fixed on the distant hills, seemed to see beyond the present, into the very heart of that stormy night decades ago. It wasn't just a heat haze, he murmured, his voice barely audible above the gentle gurgle of the creek. It was something else. A pull. A silent current that only she could truly feel. The old ones used to say, when the water calls, the water-veiled must follow. And that night, the call was too strong, too consuming for a mortal soul to resist. He described a chilling detail. The moment Eleanor's car passed him by the bridge, he had seen not one but two distinct figures in the car. One was Eleanor, faint and almost transparent, and beside her, in the passenger seat, was a darker, almost opaque shape, indistinct in the rain, yet undeniably present. It looked like a shadow, he rasped, but it moved with her like a reflection, or a second self, and it was reaching for something outside, towards the river. My blood ran cold. The shadow he described matched my own invisible passenger, the one who left a muddy footprint and an antique compass. The compass, I whispered, my voice trembling, remembering the object she had left behind. Did she have a compass? A silver one, with a cracked face. Mr. Eldridge's eyes widened, a flicker of profound recognition passing through their aged depths, a silent confirmation of her enduring connection to the object and its power. "I," he breathed, his gaze returning to the flowing creek. Her grandmother, a wise woman from the old ways, gave her that compass, said it was to guide her home should she ever lose her way between the currents. She always carried it, a protection and a burden, I suppose. It was meant to keep her anchored, but that night the storm was too fierce, and the call of the water, too strong for even old magic to resist. He sighed, a deep, weary sound. She didn't vanish because of the storm, Sarah. The storm merely completed what was already happening. She was drawn into the current, not of the river, but of something deeper, something unseen that flows beneath Oakhaven. That compass, it holds a part of her, a connection to her true nature, a way to guide her, perhaps not just through the water, but from it. His words offered a glimpse of a potential solution, a way to finally break Eleanor's eternal loop. Mr. Eldridge rose slowly, his gaze still distant, fixed on the flowing creek, as if its current held the key to all forgotten truths. "That compass, Sarah," he repeated, his voice gaining a subtle urgency. "It's more than just a navigational tool. It's a focal point, a piece of her true self. If you can understand its purpose, its connection to the water, you might be able to guide her across." His words resonated with a profound sense of ancient wisdom, a desperate plea for understanding. He then pointed towards a small, almost invisible path that wound along the creek bed, disappearing into a dense thicket of willows. "There's an old spring there," he rasped, "a place the old ones called the Weeping Eye of the Hill. It's where the water from beneath Oakhaven first emerges, cold and clear. Eleanor often went there, even as a child. It was a place of comfort for her, and perhaps a doorway." His gaze was piercing, an undeniable directive. As he spoke, a single sharp clink echoed from the direction of the creek, a sound like metal striking stone, faint but distinct. It was followed by a subtle ripple on the surface of the water, even though no breeze stirred the leaves. It was an unnatural disturbance, a brief, chilling reminder of the spectral presence that still lingered, inextricably linked to the flowing water, a subtle presence hinting at a new level of manifestation. Mr. Eldridge's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of profound recognition passing through them. "She's trying to show you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "She's reaching out, showing you the way." The air around us grew colder, and that faint, metallic, earthy scent returned, stronger now, clinging to the damp air, a tangible manifestation of Eleanor's desperation, urging me to follow the unseen path. He then handed me a small, worn leather pouch, its surface smooth from years of handling. "For your journey, Sarah. It may offer some guidance." His hand felt cold, surprisingly strong, as he pressed it into my palm. The water flows, always, and with it, the memories. Before I could question him further, he turned and re-entered his house, leaving me alone on the porch, the leather pouch warm in my hand, with the chilling knowledge that Eleanor, the invisible passenger, was now guiding me directly to the weeping eye of the hill, to the heart of her spectral existence. The small, worn leather pouch felt surprisingly heavy in my hand, its surface smooth from years of handling. Mr. Eldridge's words, "It may offer some guidance," echoed in my mind, a silent promise in the crisp morning air. The sun, though high, seemed to cast long, eerie shadows through the dense thicket of willows that lined the creek bed, a path barely visible, yet undeniably beckoning, leading to the weeping eye of the hill. I began to walk, my footsteps muffled by the damp earth and fallen leaves. The rhythmic gurgle of the creek was a constant companion, its gentle flow a deceptive calm that belied the profound mystery it seemed to guard. The air grew colder as I ventured deeper into the woods, and that faint, metallic, earthy scent, the signature of Eleanor's presence, began to permeate the air, stronger now, as if the water itself carried her essence, guiding me to the heart of her spectral existence. The antique compass, still resting in my pocket, vibrated faintly, a subtle tremor that seemed to resonate with the increasing chill in the air. It was a tangible link to Eleanor, a tool that seemed to hum with a newfound urgency, pulling me forward, drawing me closer to the elusive truth. The leather pouch felt warm against my palm, its contents still a mystery, a silent promise of the guidance Mr. Eldridge had foretold. Suddenly, the path opened into a small, secluded clearing. In its center, nestled amidst ancient, moss-covered stones, was a natural spring, its water bubbling up from the earth, clear and impossibly cold. This was the weeping eye of the hill, a place of profound stillness, yet humming with a palpable, unseen energy. The air here was frigid, thick with the scent of damp earth and something indefinable, something ancient and pure, untouched by time. As I approached the spring, a faint shimmer, the translucent ripple that marked Eleanor's presence, became visible directly above the bubbling water. It was more defined here, almost solid, a silent, almost mournful figure, hunched and indistinct, yet undeniably there, connected to the very source of the water. The compass in my pocket pulsed violently, its warmth now radiating through my clothes, a powerful beacon drawn to its true purpose, to its owner, here at the heart of the weeping eye. The translucent shimmer above the spring pulsed, taking on a more defined shape, the ethereal outline of a young woman, hunched and seemingly weeping. It was Eleanor, undeniably, her form coalescing from the very essence of the water, her spectral presence now undeniably tangible. The air around her was impossibly cold, radiating a profound sorrow that seeped into my very bones, a tangible manifestation of her endless grief, forever bound to this ancient sacred spring. I opened the leather pouch Mr. Eldridge had given me. Inside, nestled amongst dried herbs, was a small, smooth river stone, a single polished piece of obsidian. It was cold to the touch, and surprisingly heavy. As I pulled it out, a faint, almost imperceptible hum resonated from it, a low vibration that seemed to synchronize with the tremor from the antique compass, a new tool for guiding Eleanor's lost spirit. As I held the obsidian stone, a new understanding flooded my mind, a profound revelation that transcended words. The stone was a focal point, a receiver. It allowed me to perceive Eleanor's true desire, not through spoken words, but through a cascade of vivid emotional images, a longing for home, a yearning for warmth, a desperate plea for connection, for someone to truly see her, and to guide her to a final rest beyond the cold currents of her endless journey. Eleanor's spectral form in front of the spring seemed to respond to my understanding. The cold emanating from her lessened slightly, and the shimmer, though still present, pulsed with a gentler, more hopeful light. It was clear now. She wasn't malevolent. She was simply lost, a soul unable to find peace, trapped by the water veil and the tragic circumstances of her last ride, perpetually seeking release from her watery confines. Suddenly, a series of rapid, fragmented images, more coherent than before, flashed through my mind, direct from Eleanor. The interior of her vintage car, the winding, rain-slicked road, and then a desperate attempt to avoid something unseen in the downpour. But crucially, the images did not end in darkness. Instead, they showed a brief, agonizing struggle, a reaching hand, and then a faint, shimmering portal, like a sheet of pure, flowing water, opening at the side of the road, beckoning her through, not into death, but into her new spectral existence. The fragmented images from Eleanor's memory, raw and agonizing, revealed a truth far more complex than simple disappearance. She hadn't died in a car accident, but had been pulled, almost deliberately, into a shimmering, watery portal at the side of the road. It wasn't a death, but a transition, a forced passage into the spectral realm, a truth that solidified my understanding of her endless cyclical journey as the invisible passenger. The obsidian stone in my hand felt suddenly warm, resonating with this profound revelation. Eleanor's spectral form above the spring intensified, her translucent features seeming to shift, no longer merely mournful, but now infused with a desperate urgency, a silent plea for action. The profound cold emanating from her lessened, replaced by a subtle hum, almost a vibration of anticipation. It was as if this shared understanding had forged a deeper connection between us, a bond beyond words, linking me to her ancient sorrow and her endless search for peace. My mind raced, connecting this new information with Mr. Eldridge's words about the water veil and the old native tales. Eleanor hadn't been a victim of the storm in the traditional sense. She was a victim of her own unique nature, a soul predisposed to a spectral existence, finally drawn through a watery gate that only she perhaps could truly perceive. The compass, its face still cracked, seemed to hum in my pocket, a silent tool for navigating these unseen currents. I realized then what she truly needed. Not a ride back to her physical home, but a guide to her true home, to a place of final rest beyond the watery veil that bound her. The sacrifice of connection that Alara Thorne had alluded to in Oakhaven's Hill, about severing a malevolent link, felt strangely echoed here, in a different context. Eleanor needed her connection to the endless loop severed, her spectral journey concluded, a final passage from one state of being to another. I looked at the obsidian stone in my hand, then at the antique compass. They were not merely objects. They were instruments of passage, tools from an ancient knowledge, given to me to facilitate this final, critical journey. The spring bubbled gently, its clear, cold water a silent, patient witness. I knew what I had to do. Guide Eleanor, the invisible passenger, on one last, crucial ride, a journey that would finally free her from her watery prison, using the unique power I now held to bring her eternal peace. The clear, cold water of the spring bubbled gently, reflecting the translucent shimmer of Eleanor's form. The obsidian stone in my hand felt cool and smooth, its subtle hum resonating with the antique compass now held firmly in my other, a synchronized pulse of ancient energy. It was a moment of profound clarity, a terrifying yet undeniable understanding of my role in a drama that had begun decades ago, a direct connection to a lost soul. I knew that Eleanor's endless cycle of seeking a ride in the rain was her desperate attempt to retrace her last steps, to find a way back to a home she could no longer perceive. But the home she sought was not a physical house. It was a state of being, a release from the watery veil that bound her, a passage to true rest. The ancient knowledge, the tools I now held, were for this final critical journey, a way to guide her not from the rain, but through it. The air around Eleanor's spectral form grew colder, a chilling presence that seemed to solidify with my understanding. She was ready. Her silent plea, conveyed through fragmented memories and emotional surges, now felt like a desperate anticipation, a hope finally kindled after 50 years of perpetual torment. The gentle gurgle of the spring seemed to quicken, as if the water itself was eager to facilitate this long-awaited passage, a final act of compassion for a lost soul. My resolve hardened, pushing aside the lingering fear. I was not just a rideshare driver. I was her guide, her last chance. The setting sun began to cast long shadows through the clearing, painting the woods in hues of twilight, a fitting backdrop for a journey that transcended the boundaries of life and death. The faint scent of damp earth and something indefinable, like pure elemental water, filled the air, a silent blessing. I looked at Eleanor's shimmering form, then at the antique compass, its cracked face a silent testament to its own long, arduous journey. It was time. The next rain, I knew, would not be just another storm. It would be her final ride, a deliberate act of guidance, a journey I would undertake willingly to help the invisible passenger find her way home, a profound undertaking that would forever change my understanding of the world and my place within it. The knowledge that the next rain would be Eleanor's final ride settled within me, a heavy yet strangely peaceful resolve. The antique compass, now a constant weight in my pocket, pulsed with a subtle guiding tremor, and the smooth obsidian, stone, a cool presence in my hand, felt like a promise of safe passage. The air, though clear, still held the faint, lingering scent of damp earth, a ghost of the rain that bound Eleanor to her eternal journey, a quiet anticipation for the inevitable. I spent the following days in quiet preparation, researching forgotten maps of Oak Haven, studying the old newspaper clippings about Eleanor, and rereading Mr. Eldridge's vague notes about water-veiled souls. I knew that understanding the exact route of her vanishing, the confluence of streams and underground currents, would be crucial for this final, desperate attempt to guide her home, to break the endless loop that had ensnared her for 50 years. The sky remained stubbornly clear, a deceptive calm that seemed to mock my newfound purpose. Each passing hour felt like an eternity, an anxious wait for the clouds to gather, for the distant rumbling of thunder to announce the return of the rain, the very element that held the key to Eleanor's release. The quiet of Oak Haven, usually a comfort, now felt oppressive, a holding breath before the storm. My car, once merely a tool for my livelihood, now felt like a vessel destined for a sacred purpose. I meticulously cleaned its interior, as if preparing it for a passenger of profound importance. The back seat, once a place of terrifying mystery, now felt like a silent, awaiting sanctuary for a lost soul, a final, temporary resting place before her ultimate journey, a profound understanding settling in my heart. Then, late one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a single fat raindrop splattered against my window. Soon, another, then another, until the gentle patter became a steady drumming, intensifying with each passing minute. The air grew cold, and that familiar metallic earthy scent returned, faint at first, then growing stronger, filling my lungs with its ancient, acrid breath. The rain had come. Eleanor was calling. The first drop of rain on the windshield felt like a silent signal, a profound connection to Eleanor. Soon, the gentle patter escalated into a steady drumming, then a relentless downpour, mirroring the intensity of that night 50 years ago. The air grew frigid, and that familiar, metallic, earthy scent returned, strong and pervasive, filling the car with its ancient, acrid breath, a tangible manifestation of her nearing presence. My phone chimed, a single ride request popping up on the screen. The destination was the same as her original tragic journey, the abandoned Blackburn residence. But the pickup location wasn't the one from my first terrifying encounter. It was the exact spot on the winding, secluded road where her car had been found, the place where the watery portal had swallowed her. It was her final, deliberate call, a precise map to her release. I put the car in drive, the engine a low hum, against the drumming rain, and set off. The city lights blurred through the rain-streaked windshield, a symphony of color. But my focus was entirely on the road ahead, on the destination that promised either peace or perpetual torment. The antique compass on my dashboard pulsed with a fierce, steady glow, its needles spinning wildly, then settling, pointing directly towards the path, a silent beacon guiding me. As I approached the secluded road, the rain intensified, becoming a sheeting deluge that reduced visibility to mere feet. My wipers struggled against the torrent, and the roar of the downpour against the car roof was deafening. But through it all, I felt a strange calm, a profound connection to Eleanor, a silent understanding that this was the moment, the final act of a tragic half-century-long play, a chance to finally break her cycle. I pulled over at the exact spot, on the winding road, the tires crunching softly on the wet gravel. There was no visible figure waiting in the torrential rain, just the dense, rain-lashed woods and the dark, swirling mist. But the air in my car dropped to an impossibly cold temperature, and a faint shimmer, translucent and ethereal, appeared in the back seat, slowly solidifying into the familiar, hunched silhouette of Eleanor Blackburn, her presence undeniable, her final ride about to begin. Eleanor's spectral form, translucent and indistinct, settled into the back seat, her presence marked by an immediate, profound drop in temperature and the strong metallic earthy scent that filled the car. There was no sound from her, no greetings, just an oppressive stillness that seemed to deepen the roar of the rain outside. The antique compass on the dashboard glowed faintly, its needle now steady, pointing directly ahead, guiding our silent journey. I placed the smooth obsidian stone from Mr. Eldridge's pouch on the empty passenger seat beside me. It too began to pulse with a subtle light, mirroring the glow of the compass, a silent, powerful conduit to Eleanor's essence. The air between the stone and Eleanor's spectral form seemed to hum with an unseen energy, a palpable current flowing between the objects, connecting her last guide to her final journey. "All right, Eleanor," I whispered, my voice barely audible above the drumming rain. "Let's get you home." I put the car in drive, and we began to move, slowly at first, then picking up speed, cutting through the torrential downpour. The silence from the backseat was no longer terrifying. It was a profound anticipation, a silent understanding between driver and spectral passenger, a shared purpose to break a decades-long curse. The rain intensified as we drove, becoming a blinding sheet of water that enveloped the car, making the world outside a mere blur of greens and grays. It was the kind of storm that would normally make me pull over, but I pressed on, guided by an instinct deeper than fear, by the steady glow of the compass, and by the unseen presence in my back seat, her essence seeming to flow with the very rain that encased us. As we approached the turnoff for the abandoned Blackburn residence, the obsidian stone in my hand began to vibrate fiercely, its light intensifying, mirroring a profound surge of energy from Eleanor's spectral form. The rain outside seemed to swirl around the car with an almost violent purpose, as if the storm itself was responding to her heightened emotion, signaling a critical point in her long, tragic journey, a final, desperate connection to her forgotten past. As we reached the familiar, crumbling facade of the abandoned Blackburn residence, the obsidian stone in my hand pulsed with an almost painful intensity, and Eleanor's spectral form in the back seat seemed to shimmer, her outline becoming Momentarily clearer, almost solid, the air in the car crackled with an unseen energy, and the metallic, earthy scent intensified, now mixed with a sweet, almost floral aroma, a surprising contrast that spoke of both her release and a profound, lingering sorrow. I pulled the car to a slow stop directly in front of the house, the rain still drumming relentlessly on the roof, creating a roaring cocoon around us. My gaze fixed on the broken front window, the dark opening where her family had once waited for her. The compass on the dashboard spun wildly for a moment, then settled, its needle pointing not towards a geographical north, but directly at the spectral figure in my rearview mirror, a silent acknowledgement of her true destination. "This is it, Eleanor," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion, as I put the car in park. "Your home. Your true home." The spectral shimmer in the back seat intensified, and for a fleeting, agonizing second, I saw her face, clear and distinct in the mirror. Young, beautiful, yet etched with an unbearable sadness, her eyes filled with unshed tears, fixed on the old house, then on my reflection. A silent, profound gratitude emanating from her. A wave of profound emotion washed over me, a mixture of her sorrow and a new, overwhelming sense of peace. The metallic, earthy scent began to recede, replaced entirely by the sweet floral aroma, growing stronger, like a field of blossoms after a spring rain. Eleanor's form began to dissolve, not with the abruptness of her previous vanishings, but slowly, gracefully, as if she were finally being unwoven from the fabric of this world, ascending. The spectral shimmer in the rearview mirror faded, becoming an ethereal mist, then vanishing entirely. The air in the car lost its chill, returning to a normal temperature, and the sweet, floral scent lingered for a moment, then disappeared. The rain outside, as if on cue, began to soften, its drumming lessening to a gentle patter, then slowing to a whisper. I sat there, utterly alone in the quiet car, a profound silence settling around me, knowing that Eleanor, the invisible passenger, had finally found her way home, leaving behind a profound question. What enduring mark had her journey left on me and on Oakhaven? The silence in the car was absolute, profound, broken only by the soft, diminishing patter of the rain outside. Eleanor was truly gone. The overwhelming chill had vanished, replaced by a comfortable warmth, and the sweet, floral scent, a ghost, of her release lingered for a moment longer before dissipating entirely. My hands, which had gripped the steering wheel and the obsidian stone with such intensity, now felt light, almost empty, a physical echo of the immense energy that had just flowed through them, a profound sense of closure. I sat there, utterly still, for a long moment, simply listening to the sound of the rain fading, feeling the quiet settle deep into my bones. The dashboard lights, usually a mundane glow, now seemed to illuminate a world that had been irrevocably altered. The antique compass on the dashboard lay inert, its needle still, its light extinguished, its purpose fulfilled. It was just an old, tarnished object again, but one imbued with a history that only I, perhaps, could ever truly comprehend. As the last drops of rain ceased, the world outside my car seemed to brighten, as if a veil had been lifted. The clouds, which had been thick and heavy, began to part, revealing glimpses of a clearing night sky, dotted with hesitant stars. The air felt lighter, purer, cleansed of the oppressive presence that had clung to Oakhaven for so long. It was the quiet of a place truly at peace, a profound tranquility bought at an extraordinary cost. My gaze drifted to the back seat, now completely empty, with no lingering shimmer, no phantom puddle. She was gone. Not vanished, but departed. And where she had sat, nestled in the dark fabric of the floor mat, was a single, small, smooth river stone, identical to the obsidian I held, yet infused with a faint, iridescent glow. It was a tangible token, a silent farewell from Eleanor, a symbol of gratitude, a piece of her essence left behind as a final acknowledgement. I reached for the stone, its surface cool and smooth, pulsing with a gentle inner light. It was a small piece of beauty, a silent promise that her journey had ended, and that my part in it had been successful. The scent of rain-washed earth and something undeniably pure, like clean spring water, filled my nostrils. A subtle, ethereal aroma that spoke of rest, of peace, and of a profound, lasting serenity that had finally settled over Oakhaven. The iridescent glow from the river stone pulsed gently in my hand, a silent, beautiful token of gratitude from a soul finally at peace. It felt cool and smooth, a tangible memory of an intangible journey, a profound experience that had reshaped my understanding of the world. The antique compass, now completely still on the dashboard, seemed to have completed its own long navigation, its purpose fulfilled, its silent guidance now rendered unnecessary in the new quiet. We put the car in drive and slowly pulled away from the abandoned Blackburn residence. The house, once a beacon of tragedy, now seemed to rest in a peaceful slumber, its dark windows reflecting the first hesitant stars of the clearing night sky. The air around it felt light, free of the heavy sadness that had clung to it for decades, a true sense of calm settling over the property, and indeed, over all of Oakhaven. As I drove through the now quiet streets, the city lights, no longer blurred by rain, shone with a crisp, clear luminescence. The rhythmic sweep of the wipers, a constant companion during my terrifying encounter, was gone, replaced by the soft hum of my engine and the profound silence that now permeated everything. It was a silence that spoke of resolution, of an ancient burden lifted, and of a peace that had finally found its way home. The journey back to my own cottage felt different. The familiar landmarks, the quiet houses, the winding roads, all seemed imbued with a new subtle significance. It was as if I could now perceive a deeper layer of reality, a hidden current beneath the surface of the mundane, a world of spirits and connections that had always existed, but which I had only now been granted the terrifying, yet profound, privilege of seeing. Reaching my driveway, I killed the engine, and the silence in the car became absolute. I sat there for a long moment, simply breathing, feeling the cool, clean air fill my lungs. The river stone, still glowing faintly in my palm, was a warm reminder of Eleanor, the invisible passenger who had finally found her way home, leaving behind a silence that was broken only by the gentle whispers of the wind and a profound change within myself. I stepped out of the car, the cool night air embracing me, a crisp freshness that tasted of recent rain and profound peace. The familiar scent of pine and damp earth filled my lungs, now untainted by any hint of metallic tang or decay. The sky above was a vast, inky canvas, adorned with a brilliant tapestry of stars that seemed to shimmer with a newfound intensity, reflecting a clarity that resonated deep within my soul, a sense of quiet wonder. The river stone, still glowing faintly, was warm in my palm, a comforting weight that pulsed with a gentle, inner light. It was a tangible link to Eleanor, a physical reminder of her journey and her ultimate peace. I knew then that this small, unassuming stone was more than just a token. It was a fragment of a truth I now carried, a silent testament to the unseen currents that flowed beneath the surface of our everyday lives, forever changing my perception. I walked towards my cottage, my footsteps light, unburdened by the dread that had clung to me for days. The familiar creak of my porch swing, the rustle of leaves in the ancient oak tree, all seemed amplified in the profound silence, every sound a gentle reminder of the newfound tranquility that had settled over Oakhaven, a peace that I, perhaps, was uniquely privileged to perceive, a profound understanding of the town's hidden spectral side. My mind replayed the events of the last few days, no longer with terror, but with a quiet sense of awe and a strange gratitude. Eleanor's sorrow, her endless loop, her desperate plea for release, all had led me to this moment, to a profound awakening, a discovery of a world beyond the veil, a world that existed alongside our own, subtly influencing our lives, a reality I had never imagined before. I reached my front door, the familiar wood cool beneath my fingertips. The profound silence of the night settled around me, unbroken by any lingering whispers or chilling gusts. It was the silence of true rest, of a soul finally unburdened, and I knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within my being, that Eleanor, the invisible passenger, had found her final home, leaving me with a heightened awareness of the world's hidden mysteries, a profound, lasting impact on my own life. I placed the glowing river stone on my nightstand, beside the antique compass which now lay still and dark, a tangible reminder of the night's extraordinary events. The small, unassuming stone pulsed with a faint internal light, a silent beacon that would forever mark the end of Eleanor's long journey and the profound change it had brought to my own life. It was a fragment of a truth I now carried, a secret. Understanding that would shape my every perception. The following days settled into a new rhythm. My rideshare app buzzed with new requests, and I continued my work. But now, each fare felt different. I found myself looking at my passengers with a new depth of understanding, a quiet awareness of the unseen stories they might carry, the hidden burdens that might exist just beneath the surface of their everyday lives. The world, once a simple collection of streets and buildings, now felt vast, mysterious, filled with hidden currents. Oakhaven, too, seemed to have exhaled, the lingering sense of unease that had permeated the town for decades. A subtle undercurrent of unspoken tragedy seemed to have finally dissipated. The rain, when it came, was just rain now, a natural occurrence. Its drumming on the roof, no longer carrying the terrifying weight of a spectral summons. It was a profound peace, a quiet tranquility that I, perhaps, was uniquely attuned to, a witness to the town's liberation. My encounters with Mr. Eldridge became a quiet ritual. We would sit on his porch, sipping tea, listening to the gurgle of the creek, sharing knowing glances that spoke volumes more than words. He never asked for details, and I never offered them. We simply understood, two individuals forever bound by the ancient truths of Oakhaven, by the memory of Eleanor, the invisible passenger, and the profound journey we had both witnessed. Years would pass, but the memory of Eleanor, her desperate plea, and her final peaceful departure would remain etched into my soul. The glowing river stone on my nightstand, a constant, silent reminder would forever illuminate the path I had taken, the veil I had pierced, and the extraordinary, terrifying, yet ultimately beautiful truth of the world's hidden passengers. My life, transformed by a single rainy night, would forever carry the profound peace of a soul finally at rest, and the quiet, humbling knowledge that sometimes the most important journeys are those taken with an invisible guide. The city sleeps, no longer blurred, no phantom presence, no soft word. The rain still falls, a gentle sigh, but no lost soul beneath the sky. Sarah, driver of the night, now sees beyond the common light. Her car, once just a humble frame, a vessel for a spectral flame. Eleanor, unbound at last, her endless journey, fading fast. From watery vale, her spirit freed, a silent promise, a planted seed. The compass rests, its needle true, guided a path, both old and new. Obsidian whispers, calm and deep, secrets the flowing waters keep. No ghostly chill, no scent of earth, just quiet peace, a new rebirth. The road she haunted, now serene, a spectral history, unseen. Yet in the quiet, in the air, a grateful whisper, always there. For one last ride, a hand held fast, a soul released, truly home at last.